Now, we do need to talk about this. This one's scary as hell, actually. So, folks, there is a news story going around for the last day or two about a whistleblower from the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, who worked in the IT department. And basically, this whistleblower came forward multiple times internally within the government to talk about how Doge has been stealing data, and specifically the data from unions, which is really bad, actually. And in fact, it is very illegal. And honestly, people should probably be going to jail over this type of illegal stuff. Like, if you walked into a government building and stole a computer, you should probably be prosecuted for that criminally. And yet this hasn't really happened yet with Doge, but this whistleblower really indicates that maybe that should happen. This is all from an NPR article. A Doge whistleblower's disclosure details how Doge may have taken sensitive labor data. And this article is wild as hell. Okay, I am going to link it in chat, and I recommend all of you take a read when you have time. This whole thing is utterly insane, and you're going to see exactly how insane as we get deeper into it here. But it's scary. It's scary. So, according to an official whistleblower disclosure shared with Congress and other federal overseers that was obtained by NPR, subsequent interviews with the whistleblower and records of internal communications, technical staff members were alarmed about what Doge engineers did when they were granted access, particularly when those staffers noticed a spike in data leaving the agency. It's possible that the data included sensitive information on unions, ongoing legal cases, and corporate secrets, data that 4 labor law experts tell NPR should almost never leave the NLRB, and that has nothing to do with making the government more efficient or cutting spending. So they can see that data left. They don't know exactly what data was taken, but they can see that the data left. What could they do with this data? They could target union organizers. They could target union activities. They could target union funds. They could target a number of different things. They could deal crippling blows to unions. Do you think they're planning on selling it? I mean, they're either planning on selling it or planning to incorporate it into Elon's Grok AI. All of these AI companies are so data hungry. They need more data to train their AI models on. So as we get deeper into this, right? The employees grew concerned that the NLRB's confidential data could be exposed, particularly after they started suspecting suspicious login attempts from an IP address in Russia, according to the disclosure. Eventually, the disclosure continued. The IT department launched a formal review of what it deemed a serious ongoing security breach or potential illegal removal of personally identifiable information. The whistleblower believes that the suspicious activity warrants further investigation by agencies with more resources like the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or the FBI. So, yeah. What they're doing here seems like, because keep in mind, some of this data isn't just data on unions, it's also like corporate secrets. It's also like sensitive information that is secret to unions, to companies, etc. And if this data was taken and given to state actors, spies, that would explain perhaps some of the data being pinged from Russia. So this is really not great, to say the least. Different labor law experts interviewed by NPR fear that if the data gets out, it could be abused, including by private companies with cases before the agency that might get insights into damaging testimony, union leadership, legal strategies, and internal data on competitors. Musk's SpaceX among them. It could also be used to identify whistleblowers, like, say, the whistleblower that alerted everyone to this particular story in the first place. I could swear you talked about this story weeks back. Well, there have been numerous data leaks and data thefts from different government agencies. This is a new one, and it is potentially one of the more serious ones. So, this is where it gets weirder and more disturbing. The new revelations about Doge's activities at the labor agency come from a whistleblower in the IT department of the NLRB, who disclosed his concerns to Congress and the U.S. Office of Special Counsel in a detailed report that was then provided to NPR. Meanwhile, his attempts to raise concerns internally within the NLRB preceded someone, quote, physically taping a threatening note, unquote, to his door that included sensitive personal information and overhead photos of him walking his dog that appeared to be taken with a drone, according to a cover letter attached to his disclosure filed by his attorney, Andrew Bakaj of the nonprofit Whistleblower Aid. So basically, guys, what ended up happening here is that the Doge members inside of the NLRB knew that this guy was potentially leaking stuff after he tried to escalate it within the government to the appropriate channels of when something suspicious happens. And in response, these motherfucking Doge boys, these dog children, posted a sticky note to his door threatening him with, I presume his name, address, phone number, etc., etc., etc. We know where you live type shit. Along with a photo of him walking his dog taken by a drone that was shadowing him. So this is some actual thuggery within the government. I do think that one of the things we need to do is we need to stop treating these Elon Musk's child soldiers as nerdy people to bully, and we need to start taking them both less seriously because they are still nerdy children, but we also need to acknowledge that they are brown shirts. They are fascist bootlickers. They are there to intimidate people into silence, and they know it. They know that's what their job is, and frankly, their hostility should be expected, prepared for, and we should be ready. This is dirty stuff. It's dirty shit. And it will only get worse. That's true. So, 11 different technical experts across government agencies verified the whistleblower's account. NPR spoke to 30 different sources in the government, the private sector, the labor movement, cybersecurity, and law enforcement. Basically, they verified his entire account. I can't attest to what their end goal was or what they're doing with the data, the whistleblower said. But I can tell you that the bits of the puzzle that I can quantify are scary. This is a very bad picture we're looking at. After 4 years, we might have to rebuild a lot of this stuff from scratch. Oh yeah, no, they're gonna destroy the systems on the way out. It is theft. These people, frankly, in my book, should be tried for treason against the United States. And this article goes really in depth about his life, how he saw this happen, what happened once Doge got there. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. The first week of March, engineers associated with Doge arrived at the NLRB's headquarters, according to Berulis disclosure. That's the name of the whistleblower. Beforehand, they had asked about what software, hardware, programming languages, and applications the NLRB was using. Doge learned that it used commercially available cloud infrastructure that businesses typically use, which connects to government cloud systems at other agencies and can be accessed remotely. Berulis said he and several colleagues saw a black SUV and police escort enter the garage, after which building security let the Doge staffers in. They interacted with a small number of staffers, never introducing themselves to most of the IT team. Berulis says he was told by colleagues that Doge employees demanded the highest level of access, what are called tenant-owner level accounts inside the independent agency's computer systems, with essentially unrestricted permission to read, copy, and alter data, according to Berulis' disclosure. When an IT staffer suggested a streamlined process to activate those accounts in a way that would let their activities be tracked in accordance with NLRB security policies, the IT staffers were told to stay out of Doge's way, the disclosure continues. For cybersecurity professionals, a failure to log activity is a cardinal sin and contradicts the best practices as recommended by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, as well as the FBI and National Security Agency. Basically, guys, as far as this goes, this is like basically people rolling up and announcing to you to your face that they're going to do crimes. That's what they're doing. This is not like, oh, well, maybe they're doing something fishy. This is like the only reason you don't want to be tracked inside of these systems is because you are going to do something super illegal. Why the fuck did they even give them the credentials? Well, because they're low-level bureaucrats. And also, you know, they have lives, they have jobs that they rely on to live. And also, these people had a police escort. These people had, these Doge members had men with guns with them. Genuinely, this is fascist shit. None of this is normal, said Jake Braun, the executive director of the Cyber Policy Initiative at the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy and former acting principal deputy national cyber director at the White House, in an interview with NPR about the whistleblower's disclosure. This type of activity is why the government buys insider threat monitoring technology, so we can know things like this are happening and stop sensitive data exfiltration before it happens. However, the NLRB's budget hasn't had the money to pay for tools like that for years, Berulis said. So they literally do not have the infrastructure to even track what these guys are doing. A couple of days after Doge arrived, Berulis saw something else that alarmed him while browsing the internet over the weekend. MIT graduate and Doge engineer Jordan Wick had been sharing information about coding projects he was working on to his public account with GitHub, a website that allows developers to create, store, and collaborate on code. After journalist Roger Solenberger started posting on X about the account, Berulis noticed something Wick was working on, a project or repository titled NXGenB Extract. Wick made it private before Berulis could investigate further, he told NPR, but to Berulis, the title itself was revealing. So when I saw this tool, I immediately panicked, just for lack of a better term. I kind of had a conniption and said, whoa, 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 whoa. He immediately alerted his whole team. While NPR was unable to recover the code for that project, the name itself suggests that Wick could have been designing a backdoor, or B-door, to extract files from the NLRB's internal case management system known as NXGen, according to several cybersecurity experts who reviewed Berulis' conclusions. Wick, of course, did not respond when reached out for comment. It definitely seems rather odd to name it that, or brazen if you're not worried about the consequences, said one of the engineers who built NXGen, who asked for anonymity. The whole idea of removing logging and getting tenant-level access is the most disturbing part to me, the engineer said. None of this is normal. The engineers explained that while many of the NLRB's records are eventually made public, the NXGen case management system hosts proprietary data from corporate competitors, personal information about union members or employees voting to join a union, and witness testimony in ongoing cases. Access to that data is protected by numerous federal laws, including the Privacy Act. So this is basically like potentially one of the biggest corporate data breaches in history here, along with basically all data on all union members. So that's where we're at with that. About a week after arriving, the Doge engineers, and by the way, I'm skipping large segments of this article. I do recommend you go back and read this entire thing. It's really important and good journalism. About a week after arriving, the Doge engineers had left the NLRB and deleted their accounts, according to Berulis' disclosure to Congress. In the office, Berulis had limited visibility into what the Doge team was up to in real time. That's partly because, he said, the NLRB isn't advanced when it comes to detecting insider threats or potentially malicious actors inside the agency itself. We as an agency have not evolved to account for those, he explained. We were looking for bad actors outside. But he counted on Doge leaving at least a few traces of its activity behind, puzzle pieces he could assemble to try and put together a picture of what happened, details he included in his official disclosure. First, at least one Doge account was created and later deleted for use in the NLRB's cloud systems, hosted by Microsoft. Doge SA underscore 2D5C3E0446F9 at nlrb.microsoft.com. Then, Doge engineers installed what is called a container, a kind of opaque virtual computer that can run programs on a machine without revealing its activities to the rest of the network. On its own, that wouldn't be suspicious, though it did allow the engineers to work invisibly and left no trace of its activities once it was removed. Then, Berulis started tracking sensitive data leaving the places it's meant to live, according to his official disclosure. First, he saw a chunk of data exiting the NXGen system case management system's nucleus inside the NLRB system, Berulis explained. Then he saw a large spike in outbound traffic leaving the network itself. And there's actually an image here that I think is, pretty telling. Here, you've got less than a gigabyte of data leaving at any given time, and then suddenly it spikes to almost 10 gigs. That's something got taken. And not only did something get taken here, but a lot of information. Do you know how many names you can write with 10 gigs? Do you know how many addresses? Do you know how much, text fits into 10 gigs? How much raw information there is there? That is a database dump? It's like they took everything. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Unfortunately, treason requires Congress to declare war on a country. They can be tried for sedition, but not treason. Excellent point. I amend my previous comment. I hope they all get tried for sedition. Is it just me, or does SpaceX sound like a laxative? It does sound like a laxative. It's taking a shit all over the atmosphere. But this is just so fucking there's no words for it. None at all. But of course, we're not done yet. We're actually not even close to done. There's a lot more left in this story. From what he could see, the data leaving, almost all text files added up to around 10 gigabytes, or the equivalent of a full stack of encyclopedias if someone printed them, he explained. It's a sizable chunk of the total data in the NLRB system, though the agency itself hosts over 10 terabytes in historical data. It's unclear which files were copied and removed, or whether they were consolidated and compressed, which would mean even more data was exfiltrated. It's also possible that Doge ran queries looking for specific files in the NLRB system, and took only what it was looking for according to the disclosure. Regardless, that kind of spike is extremely unusual, Berulis explained, because data almost never directly leaves from the NLRB's databases. In his disclosure, Berulis shared a screenshot tracking data entering and exiting the system, and there's only one noticeable spike of data going out. He also confirmed that no one at the NLRB had been saving backup files that week or migrating data for any projects. Even when external parties like lawyers or overseers or like the inspector general are granted guest accounts on the system, it's only to view the files relevant to their case or investigation. not to just take shit, oddly enough. Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. A 10 gigabyte chunk of data copied and removed is what we call a Podesta amount of data. Yeah. According to the a former NLRB general counsel, Richard Griffin, none of that confidential and deliberative information should ever leave the agency. So just to really emphasize, this is all illegal as hell. Illegal as hell. Yeah, basically, after raising these concerns, Berulis eventually got the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, involved. However, their formal breach investigation was disrupted without an explanation, seemingly from the top down. Just suddenly everything ground to a halt. In the days after Berulis and his colleagues prepared a request for CISA's help investigating the breach, Berulis found a printed letter in an envelope taped to his door, which included threatening language, sensitive personal information, and overhead pictures of him walking his dog, according to the cover letter attached to his official disclosure. It's unclear who sent it, but the letter made specific reference to his decision to report the breach. Law enforcement is investigating the letter. If the identifying disclosure wasn't concern enough, the targeted physical intimidation and surveillance of my client is. If this is happening to Mr. Berulis, it is likely happening to others and brings our nation more in line with authoritarian regimes than with open and free democracies, wrote Bakaj, his attorney, in a statement sent to NPR. It is time for everyone, and Congress in particular, to acknowledge the facts and stop our democracy, freedom, and liberties from slipping away, something that will take generations to repair. This man, by the way, Berulis, is a goddamn hero. Because after getting that kind of threatening, intimidating letter, a lot of people might sit down and just go silent. Instead, he stepped up and made himself even more public. He came forward to the press, to Congress itself, rather than sit down and hide. And this article goes on to say, despite all of that, Berulis managed to uncover some stranger and more troubling details about what happened while Doge was logged on, which he enumerated in his official declaration. Unknown users also gave themselves a high-level access key, what's called an SAS token, meaning shared access signature, to access storage accounts before deleting it. Berulis said there is no way to track what they did with it. Someone had disabled controls that would prevent insecure, unauthorized mobile devices from logging on to the system without the proper security settings. There was an interface exposed to the public internet, potentially allowing malicious actors access to the NLRB's systems. Internal alerting and monitoring systems were found to be manually turned off. Multi-factor authentication was disabled, and Berulis noticed that an unknown user had exported a user roster, a file with contact information for outside lawyers who have worked with the NLRB. And I'm just going to pause right there and say, isn't it interesting that in the wake of that data about lawyers who may have worked with the NLRB in the past, after that information was taken, that Donald Trump started putting out a bunch of interesting executive orders against individual legal firms. Isn't that interesting? Trump is positioning himself. He's going to take over America. He's already taken over America. He's the president. This is like it. He's already won. Berulis said he noticed 5 PowerShell downloads on the system, a task automation program that would allow engineers to run automated commands. There were several code libraries that got his attention, tools that he said appeared to be designed to automate and mask data exfiltration. Again, just really want to emphasize here, there's an awful lot of things disabling security, hiding different activities. And frankly, and I'm going to point this out here, If these people did not fear the consequences of their actions, they would not be trying to cover their tracks. I think that every single one of these Doge boys knows that they could very well spend the rest of their lives in prison by the time we figure out what they've done. I think they know that. And so I think that, like, that's why they're so upset. That's why they are directly threatening this Berulis character. Okay, Berulis. I know I'm pronouncing his name so many different ways, and I'm so sorry. There was a tool to generate a seemingly endless number of IP addresses called Requests IP Rotator, and a commonly used automation tool for web developers called Browserless, both repositories starred or favorited by Wick, the Doge engineer, according to an archive of his GitHub account reviewed by NPR. While investigating the data taken from the agency, Berulis tried to determine the ultimate destination, but whoever had exfiltrated it had disguised its destination too, according to the disclosure. Again, very interesting stuff happening here. I guess Trump promised them all pardons before they got started. If that were true, they wouldn't bother hiding their, I don't think they'd bother hiding their tracks. Berulis said someone appeared to be doing something called DNS tunneling to prevent the data exfiltration from being detected. He came to that conclusion, outlined in his disclosure, after he saw a traffic spike in DNS requests parallel to the data being exfiltrated, a spike 1,000 times the normal number of requests. When someone uses this kind of technique, they set up a domain name that pings the target system with questions or queries. But they configure the compromised server so that it answers those DNS queries by sending out packets of data, allowing the attacker to steal information that has been broken down into smaller chunks. We've seen Russian threat actors doing things like this on US government systems, said one intelligence researcher. Yeah, basically, amid all of this, every single expert that NPR turned to and asked about this was just like, this is all super illegal. You would never do this. There are so many laws against this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For labor law experts, the mere possibility that sensitive records were copied is a serious danger that could create a chilling effect for employees everywhere who turn to the National Labor Relations Board for protection. Just saying that they have access to the data is intimidating, said Kate Bronfenbrenner, the director of labor education research at Cornell University and co-director of the Worker Empowerment Research Network. People are going to go, I'm not going to testify before the board because, my employer might get access. That's kind of where we're at. Why would you turn to the National Labor Relations Board to sort anything out if you're just going to be exposed to your employers? I mean, at the same time, there's not really any other mechanism, so people still are going to do that. They're just going to assume a greater and greater risk, So, there's nothing good that comes out of this. Either all of this data goes to Elon Musk, that's probably the best case scenario here. The best case scenario is that Elon Musk feeds all of this data into his AI algorithms to try and get an edge over OpenAI. That's the best case scenario here. Worst case scenario is that Russia or China or whoever, terrorists, thieves, get a hold of this data and can basically use it to ransom folks. This has got to fall under cybercrimes? Absolutely. Absolutely. The issue is all of these crimes would typically be prosecuted, my understanding, by the Department of Justice. In the absence of that, I genuinely don't know. Within minutes after Doge accessed the NLRB systems, someone with an IP address in Russia started trying to log in, according to Berulis' disclosure. The attempts were near real time, according to the disclosure. Those attempts were blocked, but they were especially alarming. Whoever was attempting to log in was using one of the newly created Doge accounts, and the person had the correct username and password, according to Berulis. While it's possible the user was disguising their location, it's highly unlikely they'd appear to be coming from Russia if they wanted to avoid suspicion, cybersecurity experts interviewed by NPR explained. On their own, a few failed login attempts from a Russian IP address aren't the smoking gun. But given the overall picture of activity, it's a concerning sign that foreign adversaries may already be searching for ways into government systems that Doge engineers may have left exposed. So, that's, yeah. I mean, like, this has played out across so many different agencies, and, again, one of the things I have to talk about as we kind of, again, I've skipped so much of this article. I'm going to link it again. It's critical reporting. Share it everywhere. But like, one of the things we have to do here is we have to remember that this happened. Like, commit this to your memory, okay? Because y'all need to remember this when we get out of this mess. This needs to be held to account. People need to answer for this. There needs to be an investigation that is cohesive, because they have stolen not just government data, but your data. Every single one of you, in some way, has had your data security impacted and destroyed, stolen from you by Doge. Some of these people who are complicit with these crimes need to go to prison. These people need to stand in court and answer for what they did. They need to explain why they did it. And then they need to pay for those crimes. They are not just accountable to the law, they are accountable to every single one of you that they have wronged. Okay? So that is where we're at with this. These fucking cybersecurity brown shirts. Disgusting.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is switching streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, being